Alrighty, guys, let's go ahead and get rocking. Let's get rolling on the notes. So, what you guys see in front of you is the steps for solving and using completing the square. Now, completing the square is a method that is the same as factoring. The reason we use this method is sometimes when you go to try to do the the AC method just doesn't work out. In fact, you actually need to go ahead and figure out what you could do to make it a perfect square trinomial so you could do the AC method. Now, I know that's a mouthful right there, but the basic idea is that this is used when the AC method doesn't work, okay? Now, looking at this right here, I have it all written out. Now, as you begin to write them, let me go ahead and talk about them. Step number one is you're going to make sure your quadratic is equal to 0. This may feel a little redundant and over the top because you're going to see shortcuts very soon, okay? And that's good. I want you to make those connections. But the idea is when you start getting into pre-calculus, you're going to go ahead and notice that you're going to the point to where you're going to need to make sure that like all the sines and cosines and tangents are combined, okay? Those kinds of things. And this was also seen in calculus as well. So pay very close attention for those moments when you get to those future classes. Now, step number two, after you put it equal to 0, you're going to then move over your constant to the other side, okay? The constant is the one that's just a number, the one that doesn't have an x. And then 3, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and do the completing the square. Step number 3, ladies and gentlemen, this right here is where we get the name completing the square. It's through step number 3, okay? That is the step. Now, after you complete the square, you're going to do number 4, which is you're going to add your answer to both sides of the equation. Now, that's really straightforward. All you do is you take what you find in 3 and you add it on both sides. Then, of course, step number 5, you're going to make the perfect square trinomial. It's a lot easier said than, it's easier done than said, actually. It's the reverse. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is look at your step 3 and you actually have your answer right off the bat. And then, of course, step number 6, you're going to take the square root on both sides. But we've done that before, okay? We did it all last week, okay? And it's preparing you for these moments where you will have to handle any type of number you take the square root of, okay? And then number 7, you're going to add or subtract to get x by itself, which that there is something we've been doing for a couple years now, okay? With that all being said, let's jump into an example. Let's just get rocking and rolling. So here's your first one, okay? Example numero uno. What you're going to do first is you're going to go ahead and combine all your like terms and set this equal to 0. Of course, the only like term here is going to be this 3, so we would add 3 to both sides, okay? That's going to give me a step 1 of x squared minus 10x plus 7 is equal to 0, okay? So that's step 1. Now, step 2, after you combine all your like terms and set it to 0, you're going to move your c value to the other side. Now, it's important you know what c is. What is c here? Good, it's the 7. So we're going to move over the 7, and you have x squared minus 10x is equal to negative 7. Now, I got negative 7 by subtracting it to the other side. Now, number 3, okay, this is the completing the square part, okay, the all-important part. This is your b over 2 squared, okay? The b over 2 is a formula that is given, okay? Now, what is the b value in this equation? Negative 10, good. And then we have this now. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is positive 25, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take that 25 and add it to both sides, okay? That's step number 4. And you have your x squared minus 10x plus 25 is equal to negative 7 plus 25. Now, I'm going to go ahead and highlight some things for you to maybe draw some connections. This x squared minus 10x, this is still this piece right here. This negative 7 is still this negative 7. And all I did was introduce this 25 right here and right here. Does that make sense so far? sometimes color coding can indeed help. Now, at this point in time, at step number 5, okay, we're going to do the perfect square trinomial. Now, what you'll notice here is this highlighted in green. That would be the AC method officially. You would perform the, what is the multiples of 25 that would split it apart. But honestly, I have a trick for you, okay, a shortcut. The shortcut is purely looking at this right here, okay, the -5, okay? Looking at that right there, believe it or not, that is the perfect square, and this is going to be your x minus 5 squared. That's literally all you have to do is you have to look at this b part right here, okay? Boom. You're done. Now, you could perform the AC method on what I boxed in green, and you will notice that you'll get the same answer, okay? But that's the shortcut, okay? Is you take your b over 2, put it for step 5, okay? Now, the right-hand side, you're going to do -7 plus 25. That gives you 18. All righty? Now, looking at this next part right here, we're going to go ahead and take the square root on either side. Now, when you take the square root on either side, that cancels out the squared, right? And so you have your x minus 5, and then your plus or minus the square root of 18. Now, please be careful. The square root of 18 is not 4. That's 16, okay? I know. It's a thinker. Now, the square root of 18 does not come out to a nice and pretty number. In fact, we need to go ahead and see what can come out, okay? Now, 18 can break up into a 2 and a 9, okay? And then a 9 can break up into a 3 and a 3, and there's my buddy system. There's my pair, okay? Now, the 3 will get to leave, right? And so you're going to have yourself an x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus 3 square root of 2, right? Because the 2 is alone. He doesn't have a buddy. So he's got to go back inside, right? So, boom, there you go. Now, step number 7 is very straightforward. All you have to go ahead and do is add 5 to the other side, and then you are done. You have x is equal to 5 plus or minus 3 square root of 2. And that is your answer. Now, are there any questions on this one right here? Not too bad, right? Nice, easy, concise step. Okay. Now, here is another example, example number 2. This is an instance if you have when your a value does not equal 1. And what you have to make sure you do, guys, in order to do completing the square, you got to make sure your a value is a 1. Okay? So that means you're going to divide your a value by the number that's there. Okay? So in this case, I have to divide everything by a 3. So I'm going to divide everything by a 3. You'll have nasty, terrible fractions. And when you get, not in my class, but in calculus, yes. Yeah, wait till then. But yes, nasty, disgusting, awful, good for nothing fractions will pop up in your future. And don't worry, it's going to be fine though. Fractions are good for you. They help you grow big and strong. Alrighty, so this right here will simplify into x squared plus 12x. No, not 12x. Pardon me. 12 divided by 3 is a 4. Let's start with that. And then 15 divided by 3, that's a 5. So that's step numero uno. Now step number 2, okay, we're going to move the c value to the other side. So you've got x squared plus 4x is equal to a -5, okay? Now, step 3 is the all-important completing the square part, okay? That is your b over 2 and then squared. And your b value is a 4, so you have 4 divided by 2. That's 2. Four? Not a problem. Got you. So 4, we're going to take that and add that to both sides. So that's going to give me a x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to negative 5 plus 4. Now, because I know everyone loves colors, I'm going to put in some color for you. Boom. These right here are what we had. All I did was introduce this 4 right here and right here. Does that make a sense? Perfect. Now, looking at this right here, you can do the trick for step number, I guess this was step 4. Step number 5, right? Step number 5 is you have your x. And what's going to go here? Plus 2. Now, where did she get plus 2? She's not a magician. She saw it right here, okay? She grabbed it from there. Now, you could have done the AC method on this right here, and you would have gotten the same answer. Or you can perform the trick and move on, right? Easy peasy. Now, this next part, negative 5 plus 4. Or what is that? Yeah, negative 5 plus 4. Negative 1. Very good. So we got negative 1. Now all we need to go ahead and do is we need to take the square root on either side. Now, this gives us x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 1. Now, we should know what that is. What is the square root of negative 1? I. Very good. It's I. Remember, the square root of negative 1 is I. Yeah, y'all remember? That was last week, okay? And so we have x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus I. Now, of course, what you're going to go ahead and do is do number 7, which is move your 2 to the other side. So you have x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus I. Done. The next thing we're going to look at is converting a standard form entirely into vertex form, okay? Now, why would we need to know that? Well, because you use completing the square to solve for that. So these ideas go hand in hand. So this next part is writing a quadratic in vertex form from standard form, okay? Using the same process that we learned above, okay? Now, the only difference between now and what we just did is instead of putting everything equal to 0, you're going to put everything equal to a y, okay? So instead of putting everything equal to 0, you're putting everything equal to y, okay? So step number 1, okay? You put everything equal to y. Easy peasy. Step 1 is done. Step 2, you're going to move over the c value, right? That's what we always do, right? So we're going to subtract 18 on over. And you have y or equals y minus 18. Okay? So I subtracted 18 to the other side. Now, step number 3, that's the all-important step. That's where we have to do our b over 2 and then squared. Step 3, b over 2 squared. So it's negative 12 divided by 2 squared. What is negative 12 divided by 2? There you go. And then negative 6 squared is 36. Now, looking at this right here, step number 4, we got to take that value and add it to either side. So you have x squared minus 12x is equal to, plus 36 is equal to y minus 18 plus 36, right? Now, looking at this right here, for step 5, you can immediately jump to the perfect square trinomial by doing x minus 6, right? And the reason we have that is because we looked at this right here and put it right there. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, good. Now, negative 18 plus 36, that's going to come out to a grand total of positive 18. Oh, it should be squared. Just testing you. And you passed. Now, this next part right here, we're going to go ahead and subtract 18 to the other side. And then you're actually done. And there's your answer. Now that is in vertex form. Now you're probably looking at that going, I still don't see the vertex form. It's because if you flip it around the other way, you will. This right here is your H. This is your K. Y'all remember that? Ever so slightly. Alrighty. Well, guys, that is what we're doing today. You're using the process completing the square. All right. You're going to use it on the homework for today. Go ahead and get started on that assignment. Let me know if you have any issues or questions. Always happy to help. Always happy to help. Great job today.